Today's quite an exciting day because today's a new car day, but it's not actually my car. This is actually my son's first car. So obviously, you know, as parents, we want a nice, sensible buy for our firstborn's first car. So naturally, you think 17-year-old Alfa Romeo. So we're just on our way back home from Gateshead, so a couple of hours journey in a Alfa Romeo 147 Collezione, one of 500 for the UK. The Collezione comes with some nice specification. Most notably, we've got this lovely cream leather in here, which looks really, really nice. The car seems to be in generally good condition, really clean underneath. Everything seems to work as it should do, and it drives superbly. This car's fitted with the 1.6 litre twin spark engine, so it's the 120 horsepower version, 5-speed manual gearbox. There are a few little things. The car's going to need a good valet, definitely is going to need a coolant flush and an oil change, because that definitely looks a bit overdue. Cam belt on these cars is a 3-year or 36,000 mile schedule, and this has had it done about 2 years ago, but it's not done very many miles since, so I would think it might see us this year before we have to do that. But as I say, initial indications is everything seems to be working as it should be. Obviously we'll pick this up a bit later on. I'll show you around the car, and as I say, we're going to have a good look at what jobs need to be done on the vehicle once we get it home. The car did have some wheel spacers on the back when we came to look at it. We've actually had those removed just because we wanted the car to be as standard as it left the factory. Initial thoughts, so you can definitely see where people are talking about that Alfa Romeo magic. Even if the car's not perfect, there is a certain bit of magic, a certain spark when you get behind the wheel that lets you know you're in an Alfa Romeo that you don't get in other vehicles. Naturally, I'm probably to blame for this purchase, because when Josh was probably not even a teenager, I took him to an Italian car meet in my Fiat 500 Twin Air 105 that I had at the time. And on the way there, in the mirror, I saw a car coming up behind me that was something that I'd actually lusted after back in the 1990s. We saw an Alfa 916 GTV coming up behind us in the dark metallic red, which is one of my favourite colours on that car, which then promptly shot past us and missed the exit for the meet we was going to. 10 minutes after we arrived, that car rolled up, having gone past, and turned around at the next junction and returned. And lo and behold, it was the 3-litre V6 Busso model as well. But yeah, 916 GTVs were talked about before this purchase was made, but those cars suffer with suspension corrosion even more than what these do. So yeah, naturally that was swiftly off the drawing board. But as I say, this seems like a good buy. Interestingly, a few facts to know. We also looked at Alfa GTs, which are essentially very similar to these under the skin, but typically they come with larger engines, and even though they were a little bit more to tax, they were actually going to be considerably cheaper than this car to insure. I think it must be purely because this car fits into that hatchback category. Maybe they deem it to be something of a hot hatch perhaps. The GT is probably not as practical a first car. The visibility is certainly not as good, anything like as good as what it is in this 147. Another thing interesting with insurance and young drivers, if this car had been a red car, the insurance premiums were coming up £200 more for a red car over this black one. And that we insured the car. We actually looked at the car on the last day of March, and the car was going to be £300 more to insure if we'd have insured it and drove it home on that day. We'd have also obviously lost a month in the tax. We'd have had to pay for the full month of March. This car has just cost £395 to tax for the year for the 1.6 twin spark. So yeah, quite expensive tax. I think it's bracket J or something like that. So we would have lost out to the tune of £30 odd a month to tax this car a day earlier. So even though we've had to do another sort of 100-mile round trip, it's still been more cost effective to go away and come back, pick the car up a few days later. So but like I say, I'm gonna pull off up here for something to eat, because I'm getting rather hungry now, and we'll pick this up again a bit later on. We pulled off into a little service area at Newton Aycliffe that I sometimes call by when I'm working, and we're going to go to the Golden Arches. Hooray, we saved. Anyway, thought it'd be a good opportunity. I'm going to just have a quick check under the bonnet, make sure that everything is still as it should be. To be honest, temperature gauge has stayed bang on where it should be, so yeah, quite happy so far. I thought it'd be a good opportunity to let you have a quick look around the car. So this is the black 147 Collezione. Obviously black would not have been the first choice of colour. It'll be an absolute nightmare to keep clean, especially where we live. It's been quite an industrial area, but yeah, one of those things when you're buying a used car of this age, you don't always have a lot of choice in the matter. But as I say, it's a Collezione limited edition model. Actually even got some carpet mats tucked away in the boot, so once the car's all cleaned up they'll be going in, because they're proper Alfa Romeo mats. Obviously all the book pack and everything's plenty of stuff in there, so yeah, the proper Alfa Romeo 147, so they'll be going in later. Space saver wheel in there and everything. Obviously it's complete with all the stuff it should have. Obviously got our dealer sticker. So yeah, Davey, I wonder if you might actually know this this one. Western Alfa Romeo, Edinburgh Road, Perth. Probably a little bit far north for you. So we've got plenty of club stickers as well on here. So yeah, Alfa Romeo Owners Club, got a sticker there, and then in the back windows on both sides we've got Alfa Romeo Owners Club stickers in there as well. So I think this car's probably been quite well loved by a club member. So like I say, we've got these sort of fin style wheels. We would have liked some telly dials being an Alfa, but yeah, that's what it came on. So they are the original standard wheels, 17-inch wheels, 215 section tyres, and a 45 profile. But this is the business end in here. Look at this leather, absolutely fantastic interior, and seems to have stood up quite well. I know the electric window switches are known for being a little bit on the fragile side, but everything else in here, oh yeah, and this airbag cover, that's warped a little bit, probably with heat, but it's all soft touch material on here. Everything's beautifully damp, so we've got a cup holder and a little storage drawer there. Radio CD, obviously standard of the time. 1 of 500 Collezione plaque, so it's not an actual numbered with the actual vehicle number, but it just says it's 1 of 500. Proper handbrake as well. Miss the days when cars all came with those. So 5-speed manual gearbox. Again, the back of the car, lovely as well in there. All this cream leather. It just wants a good valet, really. I think it'll come good. Nice gas strut on there as well. Got gas struts on both sides to take the bonnet up. This I think will be coming off, because yeah, I don't think that's standard, and we want this car as standard as possible, so that'll be coming off. Wheel spacers are already off. Behold the 1.6 16 valve twin cam twin spark engine, and yeah, this is what I wanted to keep an eye on, this coolant, just to make sure everything's as it should be. Obviously the engine's hot, so you're not going to get the most accurate of readings, but yeah, we've still got oil and water. That's the main thing. Always wary of an older car, especially if you're driving it a long journey home. I know when I had the Megane Coupe, I actually had that trailered home, and then even when I got the car on the road, I built it up, you know, a few short journeys and built up the distance. But yeah, this is going on a long drive straight out of the box. So, but yeah, as I say, just wants a little bit of a refresh in places. Anyhow, I'm starving, so let's go get something to eat. We'll pick this up again a bit later on. So it's now the morning after, and I've been shopping because obviously we need some parts to do a service on the Alfa. Did manage to actually get rid of that strut brace that were non-standard, and the money from that has paid for about 2/3 of the bill for this lot here. I'm not counting the tools because well, tools are sort of separate really, but I did have to buy these to fit this sump plug because it's got a hexagon fitting on there, and I didn't actually have, I've got Torx sockets and regular sockets, but I didn't have any hexagon sockets, so yeah, they'll be getting added to the toolbox. So we've got filter, new sump plug and washer, some 10W40 oil, and some red OAT antifreeze. I've already got some deionized water, so these are my jobs for today. So I'm going to start with the oil change first, because obviously that'll involve me lying on the floor, and I don't fancy laying on the floor after I've drained coolant everywhere. So we'll better crack on with that. So with these older cars, it's not often until you get them jacked up and have a good look underneath you really have a good idea what you're looking at. You can see a bit more of suspension now. I've got this car jacked up. Couldn't believe how low to the ground this car was. The under tray, I literally couldn't get my smartphone in landscape mode between there and the ground. That's how low it was. So the under tray is now off. That took quite a bit of doing. I had a few bolts that I think should have been captive bolts that are not captive anymore, so yeah, I was trying to sort of get a hand round with a spanner to put that right, to hold the bolt behind while I undid the nut in front, or vice versa. But I've managed to get the under tray down now. There is a crack I've noticed at the back here, so I might have to glass fibre that before this goes back on. Obviously I'll give it a good clean as well, but generally under here isn't looking too bad. We've got a little bit of residue just up there around the bolts on that pump, again around the sump, very slight sort of greasiness around there. Actually that looks cleaner than the oil in the engine, so not entirely sure if that's engine oil or something else, but yeah, I'd say generally looks pretty good. The sump plug, again, there's a very slight little bit of oil residue around there. You can actually get to the sump plug with the under tray still in place, but I wouldn't have been able to get to the oil filter there, so obviously this did need to come off, and as I say, gives me a chance for a good inspection anyway. I've got some engine degreaser as well, so in a spray bottle, so I might give that a bit of a go round as well at some point. But yeah, overall quite pleased. Chassis rails underneath again looking quite good. I think I might put a few riv nuts in place for this under tray, because there were a lot of areas where it either sort of clips or slots in place. Cars sort of go in for service, and when they come back out, quite often all the bolts that got put in are not there anymore, so yeah, or clips break and that sort of thing. Right, I'll crack that oil cap off as well. Which means that we won't have a vacuum holding it in. Actually surprised at how that oil didn't just spray out everywhere as soon as I started to crack that plug. I know when I've done the oil on the Megane, as soon as you've released pressure against that washer at the back, it usually comes gushing out everywhere. I think these hold about 4.5 litre give or take as well. So we'll get all that drained out, we'll get the filter off, new filter on with a bit of oil in as well, and then we'll top her up and see how we look. So obviously this is looking pretty dark, but doesn't look to be contaminated with anything, so that's a good sign. Is it just me, or does this all seem a bit familiar? I feel like I've only just done a job like this not long ago. Of course, on the Megane, you access the oil filter from above. These new filter pliers I bought, by the way, when I did the Megane service recently. These were a vast improvement over the ones I had before. It looks like they've come up trumps again. Ooh. More oil. Trying to get my drip tray so that it's catching the drips that are still coming from the drain plug and from where I'm removing this oil filter. Obviously, another point to always remember when you're doing an oil change on the car, I always like to try and pre-fill the filter slightly. I know when the filter's angled you can only put so much in without it spilling out, but still always good to try and put a little bit of oil in there. Oh, that was actually a bit more gloopy. Oh dear. Right, we'll let this all drain out and then we'll put everything back together. So make sure we remember we put that sump plug in, because we won't want to put oil in an engine without a sump plug or an oil filter on now, would we? So, new sump plug with copper washer, and these are actually a hexagon bit. Which is why I had to buy new tools today. It pretty much rendered my sump plug socket useless in this instance. So we'll pop this one in. I think that's dripping enough. I'm going to move that just to give me a bit of room. Just put this new one in and just do that up sort of hand tight for now. And then as always we'll torque it up. So owing to the fact Haynes don't produce a manual anymore for this, it was difficult to find some information like capacities and torque settings. I've tried some websites and things that were recommended, and also various YouTube videos, and one of them did suggest the torque setting for this should be 18 to 22 Newton meters. I've gone for 19 to start with, just to see. Hopefully it'll be tight enough to squash that and it won't leak. As I say, I think this sump must be, I mean, I think this is an all-alloy engine. I'm guessing that sump might actually be a thicker casting rather than the thin steel one on my other car. The plug certainly seems to be quite deep, and when I started undoing it, as you saw, it was a while before we actually got any oil coming through there, so hopefully that'll give a nice tight seal. Right, let's get this filter on as well. Here's our replacement filter. I've obviously rubbed a bit of oil around that seal on the top just to help that along a bit, and I've slightly pre-filled it as much as I dare. We saw we had a little bit just spill out there. And nip that up hand tight and wipe it off. And with that, it's time to put some oil in the engine. Now my driveway is not perfectly level anyway, but I'm still gonna lower the car slightly just to give a more accurate reading with the oil. I am going to be jacking the car up again because I'm doing that coolant flush, so I'm going to probably need to be able to get underneath with a tray and to undo some hoses and things. See how we're looking at that. As I said, this should take about 4.5 litres, so it'll be the vast majority of what's in here. Well, it's always easier to put some and then top it up than it is to have to drain it if you overfill it. Incidentally, I was told by someone in the know that it is Alfa Romeo actually quote the oil consumption of this car. 1 litre of oil per 1,000 mile is considered to be acceptable tolerance. A litre for every 1,000 mile. If that's true, we're going to be needing a lot of extra oil. I reckon we've done about 3.5 litres so far, give or take, so we'll check it on the dipstick now and see how it looks. Let's check that again. It looks to be about halfway between the two markers. Not always easy to see with clean oil. Yeah, a little over halfway. We'll pop a bit more in. So by tilting this on its side, I'm getting away, we're not using a funnel. It sort of comes out a little bit slower, so we're not spilling as much. I think we're about there. Happy days. I'm a little surprised actually that this Alfa cap just says engine oil. I thought it might have said oleo on it for oil. Especially being that they've got benzene and aqua on the gauges inside the car for water temperature and for fuel. So after a quick break for lunch, I'm now looking at doing the coolant flush. First thing is to identify what goes where. So obviously expansion bottle up here, we've got the return feed up the top here, and obviously from the expansion bottle comes out here and into the block. From the other side of the block things get a little bit busier. So we've got a hose that you're probably not going to be able to see on camera. Basically it comes out of this side, and you can just about see where my finger is. There's a pipe there with a bleed valve on. That's the one going into the heater matrix, and then there's another one that comes out, returns back around here. Then we've got a pipe here that comes to the top of our radiator, and then another pipe from the bottom of the radiator that comes into the bottom of the engine here. So plan is, I want to undo a couple of pipes. I'm going to get underneath and unscrew the clamp for the bottom hose, because again, with the age of the vehicle, we've got a mix of what's probably original clips and some screw type clamps on here. So when I get one of those loosened off, obviously I'm going to pull that bottom hose off and I'll use that to drain the system. It's probably going to be the one here at the bottom of the engine, because the one on the bottom of the radiator, even though that one is slightly lower and would have been the better one to do, I can't actually access the clip. It's sort of up just above the bottom lip on the bumper, and that's going to be a real pain. But obviously I can undo that one and just bend the hose down and let that drain out. So that's going to be where I'm going to drain everything out from, and I will need to undo another one somewhere as well. Obviously I can run my hose into here to flush the system. I will probably undo one of the hoses around here just before the heater matrix, so that's the heater matrix and the radiator. If the Megane was anything to go by, they're areas where corrosion will collect if you're not careful. So that's where I want to get it flushed out, because we certainly don't want the coolant looking like that anymore. That's proving difficult to undo. I might end up having to take this airbox out to give me a bit more space. So I finally managed to get that bottom hose undone. I was really struggling with a screwdriver, and tried to get in some spanners, because it was a sort of a slotted bolt on there. Tried a 6mm too small, tried an 8mm too big. Went through my good socket set, couldn't find a 7mm in there, couldn't find a 7mm spanner. And then I went through, you know, the little box we all have with old sort of cheap junk sockets and things that a lot of people would have us throw away, but we always keep them there because we think that one day they might come in useful. Well, today was that day. I've just used a 7mm socket to get that undone. I'm hoping that's mostly out now. Everything obviously dropped pretty quickly from the engine. I'm just holding this hose down just to make sure everything clears the radiator. I could actually hear the coolant sloshing about as it all started to void the radiator, so hopefully we've got a lot of that out. Obviously the expansion bottle, as you can see, is now empty. We'll give that a good flush. So this is the under tray that I've removed from underneath the Alfa, and it actually looks like it's made from glass fibre. I had considered doing a glass fibre repair. I'm running a bit short of time now. I've drained all the coolant out of the Alfa and flushed everything, but I do need to try and get all this back together for tomorrow, and obviously get it all tested and make sure everything's working correctly. So this is actually made from glass fibre, which was a little surprised about actually. Now I had considered doing a glass fibre repair on this bit that had split here. I'm just running so short of time, so what I've done, I've found where the crack ends over here, and I've actually drilled a small hole. Hopefully that'll stop the crack expanding any further. And then what I've done is a series of holes along here, and I've actually used some cable ties, which I've then just obviously snipped off at the back with the side cutters. At a later date I probably will do a glass fibre repair on this, but for now that should stop it getting any worse. Well, finally got an excuse to have a go with my riv nut tool. Let's see how this works then. If I can actually get under here with it. So we've got an M6 rev nut, which isn't actually going to go through there, I don't think. Well, it might do. Well, it's compressing them, but I'm just not getting it to bite into this. And I can't get any further under to see what I'm doing because the ramps I've got really aren't suitable for running this car up onto, and I can't really jack it any higher. As usual, time got away from me. I did end up spending the best part of an hour trying to attach one bolt onto that joined the under tray to a wheel arch liner, so that was good fun. Still not entirely happy with that. There's a few missing clips and things, and I did get my box of miscellaneous trim clips out, but I didn't manage to really improve anything. So, but it's secure enough that it's not going to fall off. I just hate annoying rattles. So next thing I really wanted to get on with was obviously doing the coolant. So we're now at a stage where temperature gauge, I don't know if you can see that, but the temperature gauge is reading where it should be, and the heater is blowing lovely and hot now. I was getting a bit worried actually, because at first the heater just it wasn't getting hot. The pipe from the pipe returning from the heater matrix, there was no heat there, and I thought, oh, this is just like with the Megane all over again. And then gave the car a little bit of gas again, squeezed a few pipes, and lo and behold, we've now got heat. So I did actually have the cap off for the most part while I was doing this. That is reading slightly high, but the car is on a gradual slope, so that should be about where it needs to be. I've put somewhere in the region of about 4.5 litres, give or take, which is about what is recommended. Bleed screw on the top of the radiator here, I've opened up, but it didn't seem to do a great deal. In fact, I didn't see anything come out of there, so I thought that could have been part of the problem. Bleed screw down here, which is quite awkward to get to. That one I did manage to undo. You can't really see it well enough when your hand's there to see if there's anything bubbling. Obviously I did get some hot fluid. I always manage to melt my gloves to my fingers. I think that just comes with the territory when you're doing this sort of work. So as I say, car's been idling now. Obviously ran it at sort of a couple of thousand RPM for a while as well, and everything seems to be as I would expect it to be. I've not seen the electric fan cut in yet, so that would have been reassuring to know, but like I say, temperature gauge is where it should be. So I think what I need to do now is get out of these overalls and just give the car a quick run, just to make sure it's doing everything that it should be doing.